It's been around for a while. It's nothing new. I've always mixed markers with colored pencils. At first, it was because I didn't have a lot of markers. Then, it became a time-saving method. All of my marker projects have strong colored pencil elements, and my colored pencil projects begin with a base of marker. Markers and pencils, they're the perfect pair. Over the years, I've learned what works, and I've learned what sounds like it should work, but somehow doesn't. Today, I've got 5 tips to help you get started with alcohol markers and colored pencils for beautiful mixed media projects. Before we start deep diving into the tips, I have a special message for the beginners out there. See, I've noticed that when anyone releases a video about combining alcohol markers with colored pencils, in the comments section, you'll read a bunch of people saying,
"Oh my gosh, thank you for covering this subject. I've always wanted to learn this technique and I didn't know where to start."
Which always sounds kind of strange to me, because last I checked, markers do not explode. And I'm pretty sure colored pencils have never started a major world war. They're just markers. They're just pencils. Stop waiting for permission and doodle around with them. Play, have fun, experiment. If you like how they look together, then keep playing. You might be onto something new and unique and wonderful. If you don't like your doodles, then find a tutorial, a class, or maybe a video containing 5 excellent tips. Art is all about experimentation, and markers plus pencils, that's got to be like the easiest experiment on the planet. So you don't have to wait for someone to walk you through the process, step by step by step by step by step by step by step. Okay, so having just said that you don't need tips to get you started, I'm going to get all hypocritical on you and give you some tips anyway. Because hey, I've been doing this for a long time, and over the years, I've had some thoughts. Maybe I can save you some time or frustration by sharing what I've learned. My first tip for marker pencil mixed media is to stop being so picky about light fast pencils. See, about 10 years ago, after adult coloring got really trendy, some colorists got their britches in a bunch over the fact that certain pencils are not totally light fast. I guess the fear is that the card you made for little Jimmy's birthday will fade in about 20 years, ignoring the fact that Jimmy is 3 and he's more likely to eat the card than treasure it forever. Look, I don't want to start a big debate in the comments section over whether all of your art supplies should be light fast. That argument is boring at this point. The debate has been had many times, and everything that could be said has been said about that. And you know what? Neither side is wrong. But here's the thing. There's no point in racking up a big credit card bill for super expensive colored pencils that are guaranteed to last 100 years when you're combining them with markers. Because markers are not light fast. The weakest link in the chain here is the alcohol marker. Who cares if the pencils are immortal when the markers are going to go poof in 10 years? So if you're thinking about doing colored pencil and markers to create frameable art, or if you want to sell original artwork, just stop, turn around, and head back out the door you came in. Markers were developed for print media. Marker artists like me, our art is not to be shared as originals. You will only ever see the printed or the digital versions. And that's fine, doesn't bother me. But if it bothers you, get out now. Markers are not light fast. So you don't have to spend big bucks on light fast colored pencils for mixed media projects. Now, I'm not saying go dirt cheap, but I am saying that this is one of those situations where you don't need to spend extra for pencils that will outlive Deadpool. Okay, so if you don't need to worry so much about the colored pencils, what should you worry about? The paper. Markers and colored pencils look great together, but unfortunately, this is a case of opposites attract. Markers are a wet medium, pencils are a dry medium. The difference means that they need completely opposite kinds of paper to look their best. Markers are best on smooth, polished paper with very little texture. But pencils, they can't stick to paper that smooth. Pencils require a slightly abrasive surface. We call this tooth. Tooth grabs and then holds onto the pencil pigment. Markers like it smooth. Pencils want some tooth. There are some great marker papers out there, and there are excellent papers for colored pencil. But there's no paper that's equally perfect for both markers and pencils. Something's got to give. So before we start every project, we have a decision to make. Is this going to be mostly marker with just a little bit of pencil? Or will this be pencil with just a hint of marker? It can't be 50-50 because the paper will not let us. If I'm going all in on pencils, I'm looking for a paper with enough tooth for the pencils, but it can't be so rough that the markers feather or bleed and just make a big mess. Bristol board fits the bill for me, but you may find something that you like better. And if I'm featuring markers, I'm looking for a smooth blending paper, but not something so smooth that the pencil slides around like a greased pig. That's the holy grail of paper, and frankly, I'm still looking for it. Express-It blending card is pretty darn perfect, but it would be perfecter if it would allow more than just a light layer of pencil. You need to shop around to find a paper that suits your ideal ratio of marker to pencil. Okay, so third tip. Remember when I said you didn't have to be picky about light fast pencils? Well, here's what you do need to look for. For marker and pencil mixed media coloring, soft wax-based pencils give you a gigantic advantage. Now, I know everyone is all a-gaga for oil-based pencils, but folks, they just do not stick well to smoother papers. When there's not a lot of tooth to begin with, you need something soft and sticky. Waxy pencils have gripping power. I know you've been told that these are like the most amazing pencils ever and that everyone should buy them and use them on everything. But folks, I don't like them because I'm a mixed media artist. While polychromos and other firm oil-based pencils are great for 100% pencil projects and they're excellent for solvent blending techniques, they just don't like marker paper. And fighting with them to get them to adhere to the paper and then to get the pigment to actually show up, I am not down for the struggle. If you want something that will absolutely work every time, go waxy. Before we get to the next tip, today's video is sponsored by me. If you like the marker pencil projects featured on this channel, I have classes, courses, and memberships to teach you how I do it all. The blend teaches you basic marker technique with little touches of colored pencil. The point is the reverse. This is basic pencil technique over a simple marker base. Between these two courses, I will have you coloring with mixed media confidence. And for monthly challenges, I have membership groups too. Link down in the description. Now back to our tips. This is number 4, and this one is all about the line art. So I don't know if you've noticed it, but I don't show my line art. I want my outlines to disappear under the coloring. And part of that is a personal decision based on my taste and style. But the other part is because I do mixed media. People who work with only markers have a big advantage when it comes to line art. You can start with bold black outlines, and then as you color, the markers can color up to and then over the black lines. Alcohol markers are transparent, so if you color on the black, no one will notice. You can even come back later and add more black lines or make existing ones heavier. With markers and fine line pens, you have a lot of flexibility. But colored pencils are not as forgiving. The pigments in colored pencils are not transparent. So as you color, any pencil that goes onto the black line work, It's gonna show. And when it does, it looks almost as bad as if you'd colored like way outside the lines. You gotta be careful. And sometimes these mistakes don't show up until you scan the project, because scanners see colored pencil differently than the human eye. Fixing these oopses is not easy, because an eraser can damage the black lines. And if you try and re-blacken the line, the colored pencil can act like a resist. The resist thing is also a factor for those who color with pencils first, and then they ink their lines as the very last step. Sometimes your lines will not stick to the penciled areas, or the color can look kind of funny where it goes over colored pencil. Even worse, sometimes ink over colored pencil stays wet and it never fully dries. Undryable ink can smear and cause major damage. Now, these are fiddly details, and if it's just a sketchbook or coloring practice, we don't really care. But as an illustrator, I care if I'm scanning something for reproduction. And I'd care if this was a coloring book page that was otherwise perfect. I'd also care a lot if this was a small card that I was giving away. Those little details matter to artists. Colored pencil and fine line pens are just not good friends. And it's incredibly disheartening to find flaws late in the game or to introduce new flaws into the final stage of the project. So you have to be careful with pencils. Come right up to the line work, but try your darndest not to go over it. My last tip builds on the previous one. Colored pencils don't play well with fine line pens. Unfortunately, colored pencils also don't play well with alcohol markers. The alcohol in alcohol markers is a solvent, and the wax and oil binders in every colored pencil, they break down in alcohol. So the order that you color really matters. In general, it's safest to do all of your marker layers first and then wait on the colored pencils until you're absolutely sure that you're done with the markers. Markers first, pencils second. If you do the pencils first, you're asking for trouble. Marker nibs, they can and will pick up bits of colored pencil pigment, and they'll spread it to areas where you really don't want it. I've even dragged colored pencil dust with my marker on accident. The paper, it picked up pencil dust from my desk, and then I accidentally smeared it.
Aw, man.
It's ridiculously easy to do, and these smudges, they're almost impossible to fix because alcohol markers also contain shellac. As soon as the ink dries, the shellac bonds the smear to the paper, and then it's never gonna budge, ever. Now, I'll admit, I do occasionally do projects where I alternate between the Copics and the colored pencil. So I'll do a little marker and then a little pencil, and then a little marker and a little pencil. But these are always bold, dark, or vibrant colored projects, which don't show smears as much. If I'm coloring something pale or pastel, there is no way I am touching anything pencil with my marker. That smear is gonna show. Now I know, we have all seen people coloring with markers over the top of colored pencil, but here's what they're not telling you. They're ruining more nibs, and they're replacing nibs more often than usual because the wax in the pencil clogs the pores of the nib, and that prevents an even and consistent ink flow. Your coloring can look blotchy because of these little patches of wax blockage. I also recently watched a video by a very talented colored pencil artist, and she was using a Copic marker to blend this one small area of a much larger colored pencil painting, and it was beautiful. She was basically using the gray Copic like it was a colorless blender, smoothing the areas out, and I just went, ooh, oh, because I know she was regretting that about an hour later. Yes, you can smush colored pencil around with a marker enough to make it look smooth and get rid of the grainy look. But when that area dries, I have noticed that it doesn't have the same sheen or reflectivity of the unblended areas. You can turn the project a little to one side, or if the light hits it at just the right angle, those marker blended zones, they really stick out. And I've also seen marker blended zones dry foggy, almost like a glazed donut where you're looking at the color through a thick layer of icing. It disturbs the beauty of your coloring because it looks like a big mistake. Now, you can play around with it to see what you like the look of, but I'm going to say for most people, you will be happier if you start with markers and finish with pencils. So there you go. Don't pay extra for light, fast pencils. Your personal ratio of marker to pencil determines which paper to use. Waxy pencils stick to smooth paper better than firm pencils. Don't color over the black line work with a colored pencil. And finally, it's always safest to finish the marker layers before you add pencil. For more information on the Strawberry Toast project, check the resource page in the description. For more mixed media tips, I have a video here, which is conveniently titled 5 More Tips. Funny how that works. And if you're hearing this message, that next tip video doesn't come out until August 2nd, 2024. In the meantime, here's another video that features colored pencils over markers.